Hello, hello. Happy live. I hope you guys all had a fantastic Thanksgiving and enjoyed the beautiful 24-degree sunny weather and are enjoying this short work week. I am going to go over the usual, which is answering your guys' questions and answers that have come in throughout the week. If you want to ask them in the chat, feel free to do so and I will answer them as well. And I'll also go over some happy news as well as real estate updates, some locally and some a little further, okay? So I'm going to start with the first question. So the first question comes from Christine in Moonstone. So Christine in Moonstone says, my husband and I are looking to have a hobby farm and potentially a dog kennel, maybe even do some form of short-term rentals and so forth. But we've offered on 2 properties and both times our appraisals have come in super under asking. How can this be if the appraisers know how hot the market is? Thank you, Christine, for asking. So to be honest, you said hobby farm, so I'm assuming it's acreage. So banks, unfortunately, appraisers and underwriters don't like more than 5 acres. So if you're buying something 7 acres, 107 acres, 47 acres, 93 acres, I don't know why I had so many 7s in there, so I changed it up, 150 acres, etc. The bank is only going to look at 5. So they're going to look at the home, they're going to look at 5 acres, and that's it. They're not going to look at, hey, there's a barn outbuilding, hey, there's a riding stable, hey, there's a this, hey, there's a that. So they don't look at anything over 5 acres. Not that they don't look at it, they just don't give it any value. And they also don't give any value to outbuildings, okay? So that's probably why. So let's just say, for example, you paid 1.3 for it, and they're like, hey, yeah, but the house is only worth X amount, 600, and the land, etc. So that would be why your appraisals are probably coming in low. So unfortunately, unless you have that extra money, there are 2 banks that I know that deal specifically with farms. So if you're not already using those, feel free to message me after and I can tell you those banks to hook you up if you don't already have access to those. But that's probably why. So again, if you're looking at more than 5 acres, they're not going to basically give it any value, okay? So again, 40 acres, 90 acres, 100, they only care about the first 5, okay? But thank you for asking. Okay, so I do some happy news, before I do the real estate updates. So hi, Scotty, how are you? Okay, so you know how they always say like dog is man's best friend, and Scotty and I would probably agree, even though we both don't have dogs, but like puppy sitting. So maybe dolphins are man's new best friend. So there was a man in his early 30s that went missing off the coast of Ireland, and they had boats looking for him and helicopters, etc. They called off the search, and then his family pleaded that they go out one more time. Disregard my hair, P.S. So they requested they go out one more time, and they ended up seeing like this group of bottlenose dolphins, and they were like dancing. I call it dancing, but and they're like doing all their twirls and showing off, etc. So as the boats went closer, they saw a head in the water basically, and the man was there. He was conscious. And, it's obviously not known if the dolphins hadn't brought attention to themselves, if they would have ever found him. But the man was definitely happy. He had just gone for a swim, not expecting to be taken out further and further into the sea. And obviously being in the ocean in this time of year would be freezing, so I'm sure he probably wouldn't have made it much longer. So the dolphins probably saved him. So anyways, that was a happy story. It is Wednesday already, Scotty, because it's a short work week. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Okay, so next question comes from Dominic in Innisfil. So Dominic said, my house looks like a typical bachelor pad, and I'm planning on selling next spring and moving to the Northwest Territories for a job. Are there any major don'ts to avoid that turn buyers off, and how can I make my house look less like a bachelor pad? Thank you, Dominic, for asking, as well as wanting it to look less like a bachelor pad, because not every guy cares. Hi, Laura, how are you? I can't see the little face you have. It looks like a little blue jay or something. Unless because I have blue shirt on, I have no idea. But thank you, Dominic, for asking. So congrats on your new job. Not to like stereotype guys or whatever, but when you have like your man cave and maybe your whole house is kind of like your man cave, I picture like, how guys have like jerseys up on the wall, or they have pinup posters of like Playboy girls or whatever. Do not have any of that. Don't have, I just think of sports, like sports memorabilia and that kind of thing. Don't have that. If your agent is using a stager, you can always have the stager come in and help you, and they can try and make it a little bit more feminine, whether that is through artwork or pillows or maybe a different comforter or something. For example, I showed a house the other day, and the one bedroom had a big like marijuana plant on the bed, and the other one had a big Playboy bunny symbol on the bed. So that's obviously not staging at its finest. So if a stager could help you out with that, or you just go to Walmart yourself and pick up some neutral decor for your, can't even think, duvets, etc., would be helpful. And again, sports memorabilia or any Playboy type photos, etc., would be better. The dolphin saved. Oh, that's a dolphin. Oh, sorry. It looks like a blue jay, Laura. I apologize. But thank you, Dominic, for asking. Oh, yeah. And you asked what did you say? What things that they definitely don't like. Let's just say, for example, my living room behind me is hardwood floors. Let's just say your living room, dining room, you're like, hey, I work at a ceramic, blah, blah, and I get all these like extra ceramic leftovers or what have you. That is not ideal. Most people do not like full ceramic. Like, they're fine with it in their bathrooms, etc., but they don't usually like it in their living spaces. So I would not do that. If, for example, you did find a vanity that was on clearance, but it's lower, for example, and you're like, hey, I got a new vanity, but obviously the heights have changed, so now vanities are higher. So just make sure you're not saying, oh, I just redid this and did that, but it's not like in style, because then it's just a waste of your money, okay? But thank you for asking. Okay, so there was a young couple, and they had been engaged for 3 months before the fellow underwent an 8-hour surgery. He had a brain tumor, and he ended up being paralyzed after. So his wife and himself started to look around, because 3 years later, they're now pregnant with their first child. And he figured, it's already, a lot on my wife because I'm in a wheelchair and so forth. So he wanted to like help out with the baby, etc. But there isn't anything that they could find that like he could put the stroller or the car seat or whatever attaching to his wheelchair. So she bought a 3D printer for her middle school classroom. And she actually did it as a project. So they got into like groups of 4, and everybody had to make like this thing to attach to his wheelchair. So they all did it from this 3D printer and ended up getting one that actually worked and functioned. And now he can take their son out and for walks and so forth. And the mom can stay home and do whatever she needs to do and get some mummy time. So I thought that was cute. So anyways, next question comes from... Who's the next question? Crystal in Creemore. So Crystal in Creemore said, I rent an adorable house in Creemore, but my landlord said he's moving in. Can he actually do that? I don't want to move. I love it here. Thank you, Crystal, for writing in. It depends if you're on a yearly lease or if you are a month-to-month. So if you're on month-to-month, and so for example, today's, the 13th or whatever it is of October. So your landlord, if you were month-to-month, your landlord could give you notice, and it would start November 1st. So all of November, all of December, you could stay. And then January 1st, you would have to be out. However, if you are on a yearly lease, so for example, your lease goes to May of next year, he cannot kick you out. If you want to leave, you could, but he could buy you out, or he could say, here's 3 months, rent, or 2 months rent, or 6 months rent, or whatever it is to leave. But you don't have to leave if you don't want to, if your lease is a yearly lease and it's till April of next year. And it has to be him moving in. It could be him, a family member, like a child, a parent, a guardian. It cannot be his best friend. It cannot be somebody that he wants to charge $300 more a month rent to, but it can be a family member, again, only if you are a month to month, not if you are on a yearly lease, okay? Thank you for asking, and hopefully it works out for you. And I have one more thing before I do the real estate update. So regardless of what doctors say, sometimes some things shine through more so. So there was an 81-year-old man, or is an 81-year-old man, I should say, in England, and he has dementia. And basically a year ago, his son said, hey, Dad, here's 4 notes, or 4, like A minor, D flat, or whatever. It's been a long time since I've been in music class. His dad used to be a music teacher, and before that he was a conductor. So he said, hey, Dad, can you make a song out of these 4 notes that he just randomly gave him? And he was tape recording it. It went viral on Twitter. And then it ended up raising over $1.7 million for dementia. And then a year later, an orchestra asked him if they could play his song and he could conduct them. And even though, he has dementia and doesn't have the greatest memory, he still cried and he was happy about that. So he just did that conducting the other day, and it went off without a hitch. So it's super cute. And even though, again, he doesn't have the greatest memory, he still remembers everything musically. So I like that. It was cute of his son to basically give his dad, some things off of his bucket list. Okay, so real estate. So P.S. we do our giveaway every single month, $2,500. So on the first of every month, we will surprise somebody at 9 a.m. and knock on their door. They do not have to be a client of Cripps Realty, but they do have to live in Simcoe County, and they do have to be over the age of 18, okay? They can be nominated by somebody in California. They could be nominated by somebody in Ireland. They could be nominated by somebody in Germany, etc. But the winner has to live in Simcoe County, okay? So, and it could be a sad story or a happy story. We never tell why we pick somebody. So in case your person is, shy, or you don't want them to know, like the public to know their personal information, no worries. We will not tell that, okay? Okay, so real estate update. So before I do actual stats and stuff, they just did a little survey on people basically renting trucks, because it has to do still with moving. So for example, people from our brokerage, they get to use our trucks for free. Or obviously if you rent a U-Haul or whatever another company's name is, where they just track your mileage or what have you, that doesn't count. But if you're getting an actual moving company, 19% of people that were surveyed said they didn't know they were actually going to weigh their things. 36% of people said they actually had no idea what they were paying for until they got the bill. And 31% said that they were charged more than their original quote. So they interviewed a bunch of, movers and so forth, and they said they often underweight things even though they know. So let's just say they know a dining table is 200 pounds or something like that. They pretend it's 20 pounds, or they know a bedroom set is 400 pounds and they pretend it's 100 pounds, because they know that they're usually getting multiple quotes and they want their quote to come in the lowest. And then in the fine print, it says hey, if it's actually weighs more than we said, then the price will be adjusted. So basically they get people's, business with the lower quote, and then they change. They're like, oh, this costs more and this costs more because it was heavier. So just as a side note. Okay, so fall market, what's going on? Things are still stable and strong. Our interest rates are still low, and it's still highly sought after to have home spaces to work from. As many people are still working from home, and some kids are doing online learning and so forth. So some economists think that Toronto's condo market will skyrocket next year, because they think as more people have to go back into the office, that not as many people will like living out of town. So they actually think that condos will go up more next year than freeholds in Toronto. It is still a seller's market though, okay? So we have seen some more offers now that have conditions. So before, let's just say 15 offers came in, we'd say 1 had conditions and 14 were firm. Now let's just say 4 offers come in, 1 will be firm and 3 will have conditions. So things have changed in that way. They're still, let's just say they were 800 before, they're still in that same price point. So it's not like, oh, they were 800 and now they're selling for 650 or anything like that. It's just now there's conditions, and buyers are a bit more conservative and not wanting to go firm on things, and they're a little bit frustrated with the market. So that is basically how they, not to say are retaliating, but what they're doing. So we just finished our third quarter. So July 1st to the end of September counts as the third quarter. So I'll go over things, basically what happened there. So it was down, to be honest, from last year, but last year's third quarter was more like our spring market, because our spring market didn't really exist because of COVID. So COVID kind of put that on hold, and then our spring market was pushed later. So when I go through things, you'll see that certain things were less. But I will tell you basically why all of that was. So in Barrie, there were 32.2% less sales in the third quarter of 2021 than there was in 2020. So 687 homes sold in 2021 in Barrie, and that was compared to 1,013 in 2020, okay? So 1,013 in 2020 and only 687 in 2021, and that's in Barrie in the third quarter. Innisfil was also down, so they were 33.6% less sales. Aurelia was down 34% less sales, and Essa was down 31.3%. percent less sales, and then Simcoe as a whole. So I don't go through every single area, but there's obviously still other townships and so forth. They were down 31.5% as a whole compared to last year in the third quarter. So last year there were 3,327 units that sold in Simcoe County in the third quarter, and this year there were only 2,280. Okay, so from 3,327 to 2,280. So obviously down. However, that doesn't mean that the average price was down. Just because less homes sold doesn't mean that the prices were down. So in Barrie in the third quarter, the average sales price was $752 and change. The other three numbers I think just confuse people. So $752 was the average price in Barrie, and last year it was $578. Okay, $578 to $752 is up 28.4%. And Innisfil, they were up 27.7%. Their average is now $876. That's in the third quarter, again, July 1st to September 30th. And then Aurelia was up 37.2%. So their average is now $662. ESSA was up 21.8%. So they now average $805. And Simcoe as a whole was up 28.4%. So their average is now $793. Last year it was $617. So yes, lots of homes were sold less, anywhere basically from 31% to 34% less homes were sold. However, the average sales price was up, right? So Simcoe as a whole, like I said, was up 28.4%, okay? And last month, there was 959 homes listed, 737 sold, and the average price was $801 and change, okay? So last month. And in 2020, the same month, there was 1193 listed. So 19.6% less homes were listed this year, and 1,013 sold last year in September. So 27.2% less sold this year. However, last year, the average sales price was $632, and this year, the average sales price was $801. So the average sales price is up over 26%, okay? And just for your curiosity, in 2019, the average sales price was $498. So it went $498 to $632 to $801 in Simcoe County. Randomness. So there's currently a house listed at 401 in Bathurst in Toronto. It's got an outdated kitchen. It's got old carpet, etc. Basically, it's a tear down. It's $2 million. So you're spending $2 million for a tear down, but they're saying, oh, you can sever the lot. So the lot can be severed into two. So you're basically paying $1 million per lot, which is crazy. So if you're mad about the prices in Barrie, you can go buy a lot for $1 million and still have to pay to build on it. So you won't be as mad anymore. Somebody who is not down the third quarter over last year is Calgary. So they're actually up 26.7% over their third quarter last year, which is crazy. And their prices, however, didn't climb as much as ours. So remember, ours climbed over 26%. Theirs only climbed 8.6%. So yes, they had way more homes sell this year, but their average price didn't go up as much as ours did. Their average price is now $457 in general, but that counts condos, townhomes, etc. And if you just look at detached homes, their average sales price is $537. So we have a thing called a RIA, which is the Ontario Real Estate Association, and there's this man that's the CEO of it, Tim Huddock. I don't know how you say that. And basically he calls the current market a cruel game of musical chairs. So he says there's way too many buyers and not enough listings. So all these buyers are circling these chairs or homes, so to speak, but there's just not enough homes. And although, like locally, for example, Barrie now allows a lot of second suites. So back in the day, you had to have RM2 zoning, or you had to, the home had to be built before 1996. But the city stepped in and realized, okay, we needed more homes. So they allowed, okay, you can finish your basement if you check all these rules and guidelines, etc., follow all these steps and have us check it out, and for safety and fire, etc. You could build a garden suite, a nanny suite flat in the back if you do this, that, and the other, and these setbacks. But that doesn't mean that they're affordable, right? So Barrie was actually posted the third highest rent in Canada. So they actually beat Toronto. So Vancouver was first. Burnaby, what's it called? It's a B word. Burnaby was second. Barrie was third. and Toronto was 4th. So the average price now for a 1-bedroom apartment in Barrie is $1,730, which is $20 more than the average price for a 1-bedroom in Toronto. So it's more expensive right now to rent in Barrie than Toronto. The average 2-bedroom in Barrie is now $1,920, which also beat Toronto's 2-bedroom price, which is crazy. What else? Oh yeah, as more people like work from home, they're still hoping that the commercial properties and all of the industrial properties, some of those can be converted to residential, but obviously that will take a long time. And that CEO man that I said, that Tim Huddock guy or whatever from the Ontario Real Estate Association, they're suggesting, or himself and AREA in as a whole, is suggesting other things, because they're saying it's way easier to buy your second house than your first house, because once you have your first house, you can eventually get equity from that year over year as the homes go up in value, but it's harder to buy your first than your second. So they're saying to help out first-time buyers, they're either saying they want them to eliminate the land transfer tax, or they're hoping that they up the credit. So currently there's like a credit that gives them $4,000, and they're hoping that they will up that to $8,000 just to help give them that incentive or that little bit of a boost to get them into the market. Back to locally. So there were 229 homes sold last month in Barrie alone. So that's 13.4% more than August of this year. And the average sales price was $779. And that's up 3.9% of August this year, okay? Not over last year. Obviously, it's way more than last year, but I'm just comparing September to August. Condos, however, went up tons in September. So they were up 51.9% more condos sold in September of this year. And the average sales price was $523. And that's up 12.5% over August of this year. So 12.5% August of this year to September of this year, not August of last year, okay? And somewhere that's up a crazy amount, 46.5%, is the Chatham area, which is basically about 3.5 hours away from here towards Detroit, basically about an hour from Windsor past London. So they beat all of us in how much they went up in price. So next question from Jack and Diane in Barrie. Okay, Jack and Diane said, we've lived in Barrie for 41 years and need a change. We would like to stay relatively close due to grandchildren, but is there a certain area you would suggest that still has that small town feel? Thank you, Jack and Diane, for asking. Obviously, everybody's different of what they say a small town feel is. So some go to Midland and they say it's a small town feel, downtown. Other people say no, they have like big box stores like Walmart and Home Depot, so it's not small town feel. Other people would say, you go to Creemore for their adorable, downtown. Other people even, it just depends. So I honestly would just take a drive depending on how far you want to go. I don't know if you want to be 45 minutes from Barrie, half hour from Barrie, or if you find like an hour and a half from Barrie, etc. We, for example, have a listing out in Clifford, and it's about an hour and 45 minutes. And basically there's all these cute little towns that are just like one little street. You might think that's small town. That might be too small town for you. I'm not really sure. So it's kind of hard to answer that question. We have a lot of clients that have moved to like Victoria Harbor and so forth. But again, just depends how much you want amenity wise and how much you think is still too much of a city for you, or big town or big box stores, etc. But there's tons of adorable places around here. And for example, if you go up Highway 11, say 15 minutes and you're in Oro, as opposed to 15 minutes up Highway 400, prices are different. So just make sure you do your homework before you purchase a place. But thank you for asking. Another thing, so our Christmas giveaways are coming up. Obviously, there's no snow yet, but eventually it'll be Christmas, and it's kind of like our $2,500 giveaway. So we pick multiple families and we give them basically gifts on their wish list. So it can be anybody, again, in Simcoe County. So feel free to nominate somebody or a family and send in their information to info@crippshomes.com. Again, info@crippshomes.com, and tell us who you are, who they are, and why you think they should win and why they're deserving. Again, we don't tell anybody's info of why we pick them, okay? Okay, so normally, obviously, in jail, people think of them being in jail and not being the most productive. But there was something that was put into place in 2016 by Barack Obama, and it's still been carried on by this foundation called Andrew McClay or something like that. And basically it gives people in jail the chance to get their bachelor's degree. So they call it in the States college, but we obviously call it university. So 37 people in the prison just outside of Los Angeles just got their bachelor's degree. Some have even gone on and signed on to get their master's. Some have started nonprofit organizations. One was called ASAP, so it's Anti-Violence Safety Accountability Project. Another one started a project to stop kids and help kids to not get into gangs. So whether they were, said, hey, you have 5 years in prison or 10 or 20 or whatever, doesn't mean it's their life sentence. And when they get out of jail, they're not going to have a chance basically to, thrive in society. So now they can better themselves and get out of jail and they have a degree or maybe even a master's, etc. So I liked that. So next question comes from Erica and Thornton. So Erica and Thornton said, I know prices are crazy and I get it. It's a seller's market, but how are people affording homes on one income? Thank you, Erica, for asking. That's a great question. And to be honest, it depends if that one income, if that person already has a home, because if they do have a home, obviously it's easier, just like I kind of mentioned before, if you were listening, because the home has gone up in value. So you automatically have some equity there. If the person and it's one income, whether that's yourself or whoever, it is obviously harder to get in if it's your first home. So I would suggest going further away. So for example, I have a friend that just bought in Windsor. She bought 2 homes under $325,000. Or for example, if you have to stay within 40 minutes of Barrie, you go up to Windsor, not Windsor, what's it called? Midland or Victoria Harbor or Wabashine or something like that. There's cheaper prices there. But if you are able to work from home and you can go further, there are cheaper areas. Again, whether you're going towards Windsor in that Chatham, Kent area, or you're going further north, etc. We had a client buy a home up past Sudbury. So if you can work from home, there's places that you can buy homes for much cheaper, under $200,000, etc. It just depends your proximity. If you already have a home, it's easier. But unfortunately, if you don't, I would say you do have to move out a bit in area, okay? So best of luck with that. I hope you find perfect property for you and your family, if you have kids, etc. So there's a 56-year-old man, and he's been married to his wife for 12 years, and he doesn't know that he's married to her. He doesn't know who she is, and so forth. He's got early onset Alzheimer's. And his wife doesn't care. She's like, I don't need a label, whatever. I'm still with him every day and so forth. So she was surprised when one day they were sitting on the couch and he said, will you marry me? So she ended up posting it online and a few people shared it, etc. And a venue ended up saying, hey, you can have my location for your wedding. And then somebody said, hey, I'll give you flowers. Hey, I'll give you photography and so forth. So they ended up re-getting married, and even though he doesn't remember either wedding, she said just seeing the look on his face, was enough joy for her. So I just like it as a love story, so it's cute. The next question comes from Jordan and Barrie. Again, if you guys have questions, you can write in here. Otherwise, I'll just answer these. Jordan and Barrie said, I entered my cousin last year for the Christmas giveaway and was wondering, 1, can I enter him again? And 2, when does the contest open for nominations? Thank you, Jordan, for entering last year. And yeah, you can start now. We haven't started to advertise it per se. I just spoke about it maybe 2 minutes ago. But besides that, we haven't started to do any ads or anything like that. But you can do it. Just say in your subject line if it's the monthly mortgage rent payment giveaway, the $2,500, or if it's a Christmas giveaway, just so we don't confuse. But yes, you can start entering and you can re-enter them if you want. And you can also enter multiple people. So let's just say you want to enter them, you want to enter your neighbor, you want to enter your sister, you want to enter whoever, you can enter multiple people, okay? And last year we had 4 families that we gave gifts to, and we give them food and so forth. Basically, they give us their wish list, and they have a 7-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 19-year-old, etc. And they tell us all their info. So thank you for asking. Okay, so you know how pets obviously cost a lot, pet supplies, let's just say doggy wheelchairs, etc. My pit bull was paralyzed in the end, and I bought him a little doggy wheelchair. I guess a big doggy wheelchair. He was heavy, but those things get expensive. So there was a 16-year-old, well now, she's 16 now, she was 14 when she started. And where'd she live? Minnesota. And basically she started YouTubing, looking up YouTube how to make wheelchairs for cats and dogs because she hated the idea of them being euthanized and put down if people couldn't afford their wheelchairs. So she's made wheelchairs for dogs and cats. She's made one for a duck, one for a guinea pig. And she just does it for the cost of, so if it costs her $200 in products, that's all she charges the people. She doesn't have any markup on it whatsoever. And it's just super cute because it's a teenager. She's in grade 11. She could obviously be doing other things, and instead she's making wheelchairs for dogs and cats and other animals. So I thought it was cute. Anyways, that's it for me. Stay positive. Go after your dreams. Don't let anybody tell you you can't do them. You can do whatever you set your mind to. And if you do have any stumbling blocks, just get up and keep going after it. You don't know what's on the other side of the hill until you get there, and it's probably worth it for sure. Anyways, hope all's well. Have a great night. Take care.